Hey, I'm Deirdre Bosa with the Tech Check Take, and this is our latest long-form interview with Perplexity CEO Aravind Srinivas. He's been one of the earliest and the quickest adopters of DeepSeek, integrating the open source model while ensuring American data remains secure and stripping away the censorship baked into the original model. That led President Trump's AI czar, David Sacks, to promote DeepSeek on X. Now, as Perplexity makes a bid for TikTok, Srinivas says he can do the same, host a social media app in America, make it uncensored and secure. In our discussion, he argues that Perplexity is uniquely positioned to recreate the algorithm by leaning on its core business of AI search. Feels like there's a misunderstanding because, the whole DeepSeek breakthrough saga, whatever you want to call it, has been sort of, there's the Chinese side of it, right?
Yeah.
And then there's the actual innovation, which you've talked a lot about.
Yeah.
Explain for those that may not understand how, when you implement it into Perplexity, you're separating it from China.
Yeah. So first of all, Bill Ackman also didn't quite get it and had to explain this. So DeepSeek is a name that's used for multiple things. So it's the app, the model. The model is called DeepSeek R1. The app is called DeepSeek, and the R1 is a model that's like you interact with on the DeepSeek app. Except when you use that model on that app, you get censored outputs. And also, that model is hosted in China. So anytime you use the DeepSeek app, your input or your user request on your chat goes to China, and you cannot control that. On the other hand, another company can download the DeepSeek R1 weights from the internet because it's open source. So you can download those weights and you can host it, as in you can bring it up on a server rack hosted in the US or Europe. And when you use the other app, like say Perplexity, and interact with the DeepSeek model on that app, none of your data goes to China. So hopefully you feel good about it. And number two, we remove the censorship in that model. So you can go and talk to this model about Taiwan. You can ask who owns Taiwan, or what are the debates about its origins or ownership, or give me 10 points that both praise and criticize the Chinese Communist Party or Tiananmen Square. You can ask all these incidents, and it's just going to give you pretty uncensored answers, which the DeepSeek app will not, because that is an app that is run by a Chinese company and they have to comply to the rules set by the Chinese Communist Party. We can give you access to these models and the experience that is in line with the American ideals of free speech and liberty.
Right. It's such a key point, yet DeepSeek has been #1 on the App Store for over a week, right? And I mean,
it's driven by the daily downloads, obviously, and look, it's definitely going to keep being #1 for a while. Okay, so that's not going to change immediately, but then once people understand that the model is a propaganda machine for the Communist Party, they're going to move on to other apps that do the same thing much better.
Right.
And we hope.
And you've implemented it, so you hope
Yeah.
Perplexity. I mean, both the current and former administration has spent so much time talking about TikTok, right?
Yeah.
I made the argument that an AI app, DeepSeek, is so much more dangerous to be sending information back to China than a social media app. And yet you don't hear what you're saying, which is such an important point. I mean, why aren't we getting ahead of this? Why isn't the administration saying, stop downloading DeepSeek, access it through a third party where it's not going to be censored, where we're not sending your data back to China?
I hope they do. I mean, the AI czar, David Sacks, he did repost my tweet about it and saying this is a good way to use DeepSeek for an American product. And I mean, I hope that the administration wakes up to it and informs users that hey, look, this is a great model, and we really encourage competition, but don't go use it on this app. It's not good for you. You don't want China to know so much about you. So that's one thing. And the second thing I would say is TikTok kind of helped DeepSeek a lot in ways that we don't realize. And that's also why it's important that an American company runs TikTok. a lot of DeepSeek's growth came through TikTok, like people creating these videos about DeepSeek,
Right.
and then obviously it has insane distribution, so people go to the App Store and install the app. So it's essential that if we had TikTok running through an American company, we could at least inform the users through TikTok that, hey, like, look, make sure to like use an app that's hosted in America, not in China. So I think the same thing we did with DeepSeek, we want to do it with TikTok, and that's actually why we submitted a bid to merge with TikTok US and run it on American data centers with an algorithm that's more true to the American ideals of liberty and free speech.
One of the issues, though, with the idea of having American company or individuals own TikTok is that China doesn't want to let it go, doesn't want the algorithm, especially to come over here.
Yeah, we're going to rebuild the algorithm. So AI companies can do that. Like a bunch of private equity firms accumulating capital to buy the TikTok asset cannot build the algorithm.
Right.
They'll have to license it, and when they rebuild it, it's still going to have the biases that the original algorithm had. So an AI company can do it faster. I'm not saying it's an easy task, but it's better understood. And so there are only few AI companies that can do that, and and the number of non-big tech or like not allied with big tech AI companies that can do that is actually just one, which is us.
Why has it been so hard for Meta? They've been trying to recreate the algorithms through Reels, and
I would say they've created it.
You think they've recreated it?
I think Reels is a good product. Like, I mean, I don't like using it as a
See,
but
you prefer TikTok, and I think many people do.
Sure. So, look, I'm not saying I don't think Meta has. There are some things on TikTok that are just so much better that I, as a user, think Instagram has not caught up with, which is a lot of people do local searches on TikTok. Like if you want to know what's going on in a restaurant right now, or like if you want to go to a hike at like 8 a.m. somewhere, on TikTok you can actually see other people posting videos about the exact hike they're doing at that point right there, which you cannot get anywhere else. It's very well integrated with Google Maps. It gives you all the information, reviews. When you're going and visiting a new city, like travel planning becomes a lot easier with like reels that are posted by people on TikTok. Search on TikTok's a lot better than on Instagram. So end to end, it's a better app than Instagram.
And going back to your point, Perplexity, you believe, is the only non-mega cap AI company that can recreate the algorithm?
That's right. I mean,
what gives you that confidence?
Just to be very clear, I'm not saying nobody else can recreate the algorithm, but we are the only company that's not allied with big tech or non-big tech or non-mega cap, to use Andreessen Horowitz, but little tech, that can still have the talent to do this. And also a lot of people think like the search app and TikTok have no connection to each other, but there is. A lot of the next generation is just searching on the TikTok search bar. So I think like a lot of propaganda and misinformation exists on TikTok. So something like an AI-powered community notes that can just answer people's questions or append like additional information in an automatic way is necessary. And so we want to like also surface TikTok content, live content into Perplexity so those enrich the results. So there will be a tighter integration between the two apps, but they can continue to simultaneously exist, bootstrapping off each other's distribution.
Perplexity and TikTok.
Correct. And so we can also prevent future incidents where like an app like DeepSeek goes viral through TikTok and everyone's data is going to China if an American company ran it.
But that means interfering with the output from users, right? Saying, hold on, how do you
not
get
interfering, but adding a community note. Hey, look, go ahead and install the app if you want to, but beware, your data is going to China. And beware, this is a model that's censored.
Do you need AI researchers to create the algorithm? Because you guys don't actually build the models, right? You're kind of agnostic. You bring everything together. Is that enough to be able to recreate the algorithm?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the algorithms are more based on traditional recommendation systems rather than generative outputs. Also, we can still build generative models. Like, it's not that we cannot. We choose not to do that because it's not the best use of our capital. But we have post-trained models ourselves, and like for example, we made it uncensored. We know how we train a lot of other models in the product that suggest questions, and like we have a feed. And we're trying to get it personalized to the user. So I think like there's a lot of things that we can do using our expertise to like rebuild the TikTok feed.
Right. And it's interesting, you think search is really key to that, which makes the experience better.
100%.
Why do you think a little tech company should be running TikTok versus a Microsoft or a big tech?
First of all, like I think the whole point is like you cannot make big tech even more powerful than it is. And I think pretty much every average American understands it today. That, like, for example, in the case of Google, they own YouTube already, right? And giving them the only viable alternative to videos is not necessarily a good thing. And same with Microsoft. Like, the only thing that let Google even compete with Microsoft on consumer was the fact that Microsoft never had a videos platform.
Right.
So you don't want to give them that. Like, I think it's good for more competition that just drives more creativity in people. And I also think like it's a new app, it's a new generation app. Yeah. You don't want like the old business people to run it.
How do you fund such a deal?
I don't think financing will be a concern if like the parties interested in transacting want to do it.
Is that because the government would own it essentially?
No, the government's not going to pay for the financing. What we proposed is that in case the merger happens and in case the joint company, in the event of an IPO, which we should absolutely do, then the proceeds from the IPO, whatever percentage that President Trump wants, can go to the government, and he's recently announced the United States Sovereign Wealth Fund, so we can give it to that. So I think that would be a great way to like, make our government richer, because a great app like TikTok's being run in the American soil with American algorithms and data centers.
Such a change, though. I mean, do you think that users are comfortable with the U.S. government getting all of that data? Do you think that that's a development?
Well, the government's not going to get the data.
Okay.
I think that's why like it's very essential to understand like there are sovereign wealth funds in other countries. For example, the Middle East has a sovereign fund, Japan, Korea, and these are all like LPs, limited partners, in many of American venture capital firms. And those firms invest in many of these companies, like for example, Andreessen Horowitz is an investor in many companies, and a lot of the Sequoia, a lot of their capital comes from sovereign funds.
Yeah.
So this is already a thing, and so it's completely fine for a sovereign fund to make a direct investment in a company. It's just like matter of like where the money goes through, and owning equity in a valuable asset doesn't mean that you get the data. So I think that's very important.
Thank you, for making that distinction. So if a merger were to happen, would it be an IPO right away? Is that what you're saying?
Not right away.
But
obviously, we need to figure out ways to like rebuild the algorithm and like integrate the two products more tightly, and like monetize the business even better, and so on. So we got to do a lot of work. But then once it's done, like it's going to take 2-3 years or maybe more. Maybe I'm underestimating it.
Right.
But definitely the intention is to IPO and make sure the public can own an equity in the joint entity. And it's not just going to be the public. I'm just saying that as President Trump wanted the government to also benefit from it for pushing for this thing to happen, right? Like he could have just had the ban run through, but he's trying to make a solution take place here. So I think like we just proposed a novel solution where like the buy-down shareholders can still like own majority of the equity they have, as long as the voting control goes to the American entity, and then the government also benefits from the merger.
Have you laid out this argument, this strategy, to anyone in the Trump administration?
So we've been talking, like, I've definitely had conversations, but not directly with the president.
What about your shareholders, Perplexity? How do you convince them that this isn't sort of a distraction when you're building something already that is growing quickly, new, in a really competitive space?
Well, I think everybody understands that the ultimate game is distribution, right? Content is king, but distribution is kind of like the ultimate thing. And Perplexity competing with Google just accelerates 5 to 10 years with the asset called TikTok. You just have I think 1 in 3 Americans are using TikTok at this point, almost on a daily basis.
So your investors would be in favor of this?
I'm sure.
I think so, yeah. Well, it's very exciting. What about the Chinese? That feels like sort of a big hurdle. Have you talked to them? What
No,
makes you
I haven't talked to them.
Yeah, that they would be willing to do this. I guess without the algorithm, that's what you're.
Yeah, that's the thing,
on?
right? Like, look, I believe the algorithm is more valuable than the company itself. My understanding is that people are throwing random numbers, like Kevin O'Leary is throwing some random numbers, but I think like just even without the algorithm, just the users in the app,
Yeah.
like it's pretty valuable. It's at least 50 billion or whatever, more than that, because it's such a daily used app, and,
Right.
those are rare. But with the algorithm, it's going to cross hundreds of billions, and so it's important that like the acquiring entity has some AI expertise to go build the algorithm.
What do you call the new company?
I think the intention is that these are two separate entities, Perplexity and TikTok US, and there's a parent entity that owns both of that.
Got it.
And that's the parent entity is the one that will IPO, and then that's the entity that will give some of the proceeds to the US sovereign wealth fund.
Got it.